All right, man. So we got a new spot. We're gonna start recording from another studio, Carlot Studio here in San Antonio. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. You know, some personal issues came up, some things happened. We just weren't able to get a show out, but we got a great one for you this week. It's kind of a draft show. Gonna talk about the NBA draft, some top prospects. Gonna talk about the NFL draft because that's coming up in about a week and a half here. So there's some big storylines coming up. So stay tuned and let's go. Since our college basketball season ended on such a terrible note, I decided to make some lists because you know I like to make lists because I'm a nerd. But watching the tournament got me thinking. All of the teams that are picking in the lottery, who are their ideal prospects? So this is the list that I made. So it's a hybrid of like a mock draft / a team needs diagram, if you will. So it's matching the ideal prospect to the team picking based on who's still left on a draft board. So obviously Zion and Jay Morant can't go to every team because they're obviously going to be the picks for just about anybody. But we can't do that. So right now, and I have it based on because they haven't done the lottery balls and all that kind of stuff, so nobody really knows who's picking where. It's based on percentages. So right now, New York is projected to pick number 1. And so long as they don't let James Dolan Goofus pick up, they're going to take Zion. Like, I think Zion is the most athletic player we've seen coming out of college since, I don't know, maybe ever. You know, he fits their lineup because they have a hole at 4. He fits what they want to do. He's young, he's athletic, he hustles, and he's going to sell tickets.
That's the main thing that they need.
Yeah,
they just got to get Knicks fans excited again.
Because James Dolan's pretty much pissed off that entire fan base. So if at least they draft Zion, they'll do something right. Then maybe they get Kyrie, and suddenly they actually are relevant again. But we'll see how that goes. But I think it's safe to say that if New York gets a number 1 pick, they're taking Zion Williams. At number 2, I think it's Cleveland, and I think they're going to end up going with R.J. Barrett. I'm not a big R.J. Barrett fan. I think to me he's a little bit one-dimensional. He kind of reminds me of a Carmelo Anthony type of player.
Carmelo's a future Hall of Famer, though.
I agree. I don't think he has quite that level. He's not quite that good, but that type of player. But at this point, Cleveland just needs talent. Cleveland might be the least talented team in the league. At this point, they just need people that can score. Like, outside of Colin Sexton, who do they have? I mean, Kevin Love is 31, coming off another injury. Who knows if he'll be able to play next year and be healthy and stay healthy for a whole season. That leaves you Cedi Osman. If that's your number 2 option, you got a problem. And that's not a knock on Cedi Osman. He's a good player. He's not a number 2 option on any team. Like, at all. So I think they take RJ simply because they know what his floor is. His floor is 19 points a game. Now, he may only shoot 41%, but he'll give you 20 points a game as a rookie. He'll give you buckets. He'll make your offense better. You know, and he can provide some secondary playmaking for Colin Sexton because Colin Sexton is not really much of a playmaker. He's more of a go-to scorer. So he can kind of provide maybe a little bit of off-ball playmaking a little bit. I think kind of towards the end when Trey Jones got hurt, I think we saw he could play a little bit of point guard a little bit, but I think Cleveland just needs to get as much talent as they can.
I agree.
At 2.
I agree.
And if that's how it plays out, I think Phoenix at 3 is going to make that pick in about 2 seconds. Jay Morant will come off the board so quick if he's sitting there for Phoenix at 3. Because right now they have a certified superstar in Devin Booker. They got another guy that looks like he could be what Kevin Love was in Minnesota with DeAndre Ayton. They got some young wing players in Kelly Oubre, TJ Warren, Mikal Bridges. They all have a lot of strength. They all look like they're going to be pretty good. They're just missing a point guard. They tried to miscast Devin Booker as a point guard, and he's not. He did okay, but they need a guy that can run point for them.
I think that would be the ideal pick for the Suns.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Jay Morant's the best passer in this draft by a significant margin.
Yeah, I think that'd be an ideal pick for them. And then plus, you know, you got Devin Booker. He doesn't have to handle the ball all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He can just do off-ball stuff coming off screens.
You
know,
can
get
turn
it to
him
him,
into
let him shoot.
a closer version of Klay Thompson, which I think would skyrocket his efficiency.
Yeah.
Which has been the biggest knock on him, is that he only shoots 43%. Well, it's because he has to do too much.
Yeah.
If you give the ball to Jay Morant is Russell Westbrook 2.0.
Yep.
You know,
I
so
agree.
you let Devin Booker be able to play off the ball and get a passer like that, him and DeAndre Ayton are going to turn up. And they could be, if nothing else, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think if they get Morant, that team will be. They won't be as bad as they've been in recent years.
No, I think they'd be very competitive.
For sure.
So at 4, Chicago is sitting there. Chicago's got a decent little core. Where I think they struggle, just like Phoenix, is at the point guard position. I think Chris Dunn is limited. I don't think he ever developed like they thought he would. So I think for them, the ideal pick is Darius Garland. Played at Vanderbilt. He's a freshman. He only played like 6 games. He hurt his knee. But when he was playing, the game before he got hurt, he dropped 33, and he was shooting almost 50% from 3. I think he's a better, more skilled offensive player than Chris Dunn is. And based on the rest of the build of that team, Chris Dunn's defensive first mindset isn't that important. Zach LaVine doesn't guard anybody. Lauri Markkanen doesn't guard anybody. Wendell Carter is hit or miss because he's young. I mean, you have Otto Porter, who is a good wing defender, but get Darius Garland and just make that an offensively driven team. You can get more creative offensively. You can space the floor better. Let Zach LaVine drive. Let Wendell Carter work down low. I think they need a guy that has a higher offensive ceiling than Chris Dunn.
I think I agree there. But Chris Dunn, when he did play, he played really well. I think he played well. I think he could fit their mold. You know, I don't know. I could see them going with Culver here too. Just because, you know, that gives you another attacking like wing, and then Jared can play defense too. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of teetered with that idea a little bit, but I think as far as fit goes, I think Darius Garland fits a little bit better, only because they just traded for Otto Porter. Had they not traded for Otto Porter, I think you could have drafted Jarrett Culver here and stuck him right in as your starting 3, and he kind of would have been a similar type of player.
That's true.
Speaking of Jarrett Culver, though, Atlanta picks 5. And I think that's who they take. I think if he's there at 5, I don't necessarily think he's the best player on the board at 5, but I think he's the best player for them. Because they have a very, very, very interesting core. Trae Young came on the second half of the year. Mm-hmm. He's your ball handler. He's your floor spacer.
Mm-hmm. He's
your primary playmaker. You got Kevin Huerter. Shooter. He's your version of Klay Thompson. He's going to stretch the floor for you.
Mm-hmm.
You got Taurean Prince. He's your 3-and-D guy. He can guard 2, 3, 4. He's got a little size to him. He can hit some open threes. You know, a little bit of a PJ Tucker type of player. He's not going to wow you, but he also doesn't demand a ton of shots. And you got John Collins, who's a really, really enticing young big man, who's looking to be your secondary centerpiece, if you will. You know, he's starting to develop a bit of a jump shot, starting to develop a little bit of a pick and roll game, a pick and pop game with Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he can jump over a plane. So, you know, there's
John
that too.
Collins is nice.
What they don't have is a secondary playmaker. Because no one else outside of Trae Young that I mentioned can dribble. None of them can pass. I think they combined, those other 3 players combined to average as many assists as Trae Young did by himself. That's not good. They need somebody that can come in, take a little bit of pressure off of Trae Young, and not make Trae Young take a bunch of heat check threes because nobody can get open. Jarrett Culver is more of he can do some off-ball playmaking. You can slide him right into your 2 or your 3 opposite Kevin Huerter. You slide him in right there. He can give you some ball handling. He can give you some shot creation. He can also get his own bucket. Nobody other than Trae Young on that team can get their own bucket.
I think the assist stats are a little misleading just because Trae Young always has the ball in his hands. So it's a little misleading there. But I think overall, Jared is probably like their number 1 ideal prospect. So I agree there. I think Jared would fit really nice with Atlanta. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
And
like I said, he's not the best player available. I think there's DeAndre Hunter still, Cam Reddish. You know, there's a couple of other big name players, some other really highly ranked players. But I think just based on fit, I think Jared's the best spot. I think that's the best spot for Jared. Being a homer for Tech, I think that's the best spot for him because I think there he'd be able to flourish. with somebody like Trae Young, where he doesn't have to be the number one option.
Yeah, and Atlanta's on the up and up for sure.
For sure. They're going to be good next year. So Washington is picking 6. Washington is in a weird spot because they've been competitive very recently, but then they got hit with injuries, and then they kind of half-tanked this year.
And then John Wall said he wasn't even sure if he was going to play next year either. So
Yeah, John Wall is still hurt. He's coming off of an Achilles injury, which is a re-injury of an injury he was already missing time with. We don't know what's going to happen with John Wall. I hope he comes back, but when he does come back, he's going to be 29. So they could go point guard here. I think it's a possibility. The problem is I think the 2 best point guards are already off the board, and I think it's a stretch reaching for like a Kobe White. I don't think he's quite top 6, top 7 player in the league, or at least in the draft. So I have them taking Otto Porter's replacement, Cam Reddish. I know he couldn't shoot in college. I know he was broke the entire year he was at Duke. I don't know why. He has the cleanest looking jump shot of anybody in this draft. He should be able to shoot. I think Bradley Beal can handle enough on-ball playmaking, and they'll probably sign somebody, Thomas Satoransky can do a little bit of it. Bradley Beal can do some of it. I think Cam Reddish could do it if they drafted him. Mm-hmm. They were saying Cam Reddish was the most naturally talented player of those kids that went to Duke. He just didn't show it. I think him being a third option threw him for something, messed his game up. Because he's so used to being the guy. Mm-hmm. I think him not getting those shots anymore and having to defer threw him off a little bit.
I agree there. It's hard when, of course I don't have any experience with it, but I think, when you've been a guy your whole life and then you bring like 3 guys together who have been the guy, like, this is my team, like, I control whatever, everything happens. The outcome of the game is based on how I play, and you put those 3 together. But that's the coach's job to do that, to mesh all those egos together. But that's a little off track. But
it was their version of the Heat. Cam Reddish was their Chris Bosh, and I just don't think he was able to adjust. But I think if you send him to Washington, he'd be the number 2 option behind Bradley Beal. He'd be allowed to just shoot, make a little bit of plays. And it's the NBA. It's faster paced. There's more minutes. There's more shots to go around. Mm-hmm. I think when he gets around good coaching and other good players, where he doesn't have to be the number 1 guy, so he has time to develop, but also is able to develop by not doing really well and taking some shots and missing some shots and going through those rookie struggles, that's only going to help him.
Yeah.
So that's who I take there. Now, the guy that broke both of our hearts, I think New Orleans at 7 takes DeAndre Hunter. Because Lord knows they've been looking for a wing since they drafted Anthony Davis in 2012. They've tried everything, and it hasn't worked. They've tried free agents, they've tried draft picks, they've tried playing 4 guards. Nothing they've done has worked. Solomon Hill has been the best wing they've had. That is terrible.
Yeah, E'Twaun Moore wasn't bad either when he was there.
He also played a little bit of shooting guard, though.
That's true.
But if Solomon Hill's the best 3-wing player you've had in 5 years, that's terrible. And that's not a knock to Solomon Moore. But he's only starting on like 5 teams in the NBA, and none of those teams are good. So let's not overcomplicate this. He's Jimmy Butler 2.0. That's who he is to me. He looks just like he has the same body as Jimmy Butler. He plays like Jimmy Butler. He hustles like Jimmy Butler. He's a defender like Jimmy Butler. He's got that long wingspan. Mm-hmm. He's got that NBA body. He's like 215 pounds. He's a big kid. Don't overthink this. Take the wing. He can shoot. He can defend. Go.
Yeah, he's strong going to the hole, too.
He is. He can play. He can be your number 2 option. Because I don't think they're trading Anthony Davis in the offseason, but that's another topic for another show. I think DeAndre Hunter is the best player left. You have to take him, right?
I agree. I can also see if Jared falls, New Orleans taking him too.
Yeah, I can see that.
If it doesn't shake out this way.
Or if Washington liked Cam Reddish a little better, or like DeAndre Hunter a little better, I could see New Orleans taking Cam. But I think they're taking a 3. Mm-hmm. This is where I think it starts to there's a whole second tier at this point. Now you're getting into kind of the second, third tier of talent. So Memphis needs a wing guard scorer. They have Mike Conley for who knows how much longer. they have Jaren Jackson, who looks like he's going to be that dude. They don't have anybody in between the two. So I pegged them for another wing. They just kind of got shafted because all the good ones are gone. R.J. Barrett is gone. Jarrett Culver's gone. Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter. They're all off the board in the last 3 picks. So I have them taking Romeo Langford from Indiana. He's a wing scorer. He's a gifted scorer. You know, he was a little bit like Cam Reddish, where his mechanics look better than his percentages were. Wasn't a great shooter at Indiana, but he looks like he could be. He's got a smooth...
And that's what you draft off of, potential.
Potential. He's a freshman. He's 18. But he's got a smooth stroke. He's 6'7". You know, he can play 2 guard for you. He can play 3. Memphis, though, is kind of in that same position as Cleveland. They just need talent. They got one blue chipper. They just need another guy that can go score. They need some young, cheap talent. Because right now they don't have it. So Atlanta, right now Dallas is projected to pick 9, which means the first round pick they traded last year to get Luka would go to Atlanta at 9. So Atlanta already filled their glaring hole at 3 with Jarrett Culver. So at 9, they can play a little bit and not necessarily draft for need, but draft for depth or draft for a specialist. So that's what I had him doing. I had him taking Kevin Porter from USC. Little bit of J.R. Smith. You know, 6'6", guard, athlete, shooter. Kind of streaky. He's a freshman, but he's got long arms. He's super athletic. When his jumper's going, it's going. He can hit when he wants to, but he was a bench player at USC, never really found his place. I think if you bring him in as a 6-man, at this point you're drafting for depth anyway. Bring him in as a 6-man, let him bleed. J.R. Smith, Jamal Crawford come in, you know, shoot, run, jump. He'd be really good with Trae Young. You could sub him in for Kevin Huerter at 2. Let him run with Trae Young and John Collins. Like, he can play. He's really athletic and he can shoot. And in the NBA, that's all you need to do. Jump and shoot. If you can do that, you'll get drafted high. You know, Andy has a fro, so I
automatically cold.
You have to get drafted by Atlanta if you have an afro, right?
Automatically cold.
You have to. And finally,
that's
rounding
like
out the
play
top 10.
Football and you have dreads, automatically cold.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes your ranking like 6 points higher. It makes your athleticism go up by 4 points. You automatically have a bronze badge in athleticism.
Oh, by heart?
And you get Derrick Rose's dunk package too. So at number 10, Minnesota. Why Minnesota is drafting 10th with that roster and that much talent, I don't know. That just tells me that Andrew Wiggins is the most overrated player in the NBA.
Besides Draymond.
We'll talk about that later. But I have them taking Brandon Clark. He's the oldest player that I have in my top 10. He's actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a senior. He's a junior or a senior. But here's why. They need an upgrade from Gorgie Jang. And I'm not saying he's bad, but they need a younger version of him. Brandon Clark isn't going to step out and shoot a bunch of threes. But he's athletic, he's strong, and he hustles on defense. So if you compare him with Karl Anthony Towns, who hasn't shown that he's a great defender. He's not a terrible defender, but his instincts really aren't there. The help defense really isn't there. But he's gifted offensively. So if you can combine the two, they mesh really well. So that's why I think they take Brandon Clark. The biggest losers in this draft are the Lakers. Because they're picking 11, so they don't get a great player to get, you know, they don't get a great young talent. But they still weren't good enough to make the playoffs where it would justify not getting a great player.
Yeah, it's in that weird range.
They're just in that weird... Once you get past DeAndre Hunter at 7, I think there is a significant drop-off. But, you know, obviously this could change based on how the ping-pong balls go and who picks where. You know, I think if Phoenix picks 1, they might give a hard look at Jay Moran at number 1 overall. I'm not saying they're not taking Zion. But I think they would look at it. I think, you know what I think they would do if Phoenix gets 1? I think if that means New York gets 2, I think they're trading down and taking at 2 and getting another pick out of it. I think they're going to let New York go up to trade for 1. They're going to have to give up a king's ransom to move up to 1. I think Phoenix moves down to 2 if they get the number 1 pick. If I'm Phoenix, I do. And let New York give me X player, first number 2 pick, and a first round pick next year. I'll do it.
If they're willing to do it, though.
Who's willing to do it?
New York.
There's no way they wouldn't do it.
I don't know. I don't know if New York would be.
New York wants Zion.
I don't know if New York would be willing to offer all that, but
it's James Dolan. James Dolan's an idiot.
Zion is a generational talent, though. So, I mean, it's possible. But if I was New York, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
I guess we'll see. But that's what makes the draft fun.
We'll see how it shakes out.
We talked about the NBA draft. That's still a couple months away. Let's talk about the more pressing issue. Mm-hmm. The NFL draft. That's coming up in a week and a half. Is it a foregone conclusion that Kyler's going number 1?
According to experts, it is.
I feel like that expert, I don't even know what that term means anymore. But something just is telling me that they're not going to take Kyler Murray.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, just because
they just took Josh Rosen.
Yeah, well, yeah, that. And
they were terrible. But they set him up to fail.
Yeah, that too. And, the media has really taken that. Cliff Kingsbury said that Kyler Murray was a great player and ran with that.
When Kingsbury said that, he didn't even know he was going to get fired from Tech. Yeah, much less be the coach of the Cardinals.
They ran with that story.
That was just luck.
Yeah.
Come on now. There's no reason. Of course, they heard that. But if you take that in context, which the media doesn't do, which is why we have this show.
It was just a soundbite.
It was just, what did he say? They were about to play Oklahoma. This kid is a generational talent. If I was coaching, if I was drafting number 1, I would take him because he's that good. When you got to scout the guy, what are you going to go out and say?
He sucks.
Nah, he's 5'9" and can't throw? No.
Yeah.
You're not going to risk that. Kyler Murray is a fantastic athlete. We know that. So, we saw him play really, really well at Oklahoma. So we know it's not that he's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just something. The Cardinals needed more help than just one quarterback, especially if you're not going to be able to give that quarterback any talent.
Yeah.
What they need to do, if I was Steve Keim, who seems to be on that Dave Gettleman level of decision making, I'm trading back. I'm accumulating a bunch of picks in this draft. I might trade back 2 or 3 times and end up picking like 16, but get another first and another couple seconds and just get talent. You don't have any talent on that team.
You think this draft is talented enough to do that?
I think at this point, you don't have a choice.
I don't know if I agree there. I say I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't take Kyler just because they took Josh Rosen last year. The team wasn't great to begin with.
Whatever quarterback you have to protect him. You need offensive line help because Josh Rosen got his ass beat last year.
It's just the continuity of we took a quarterback last year. If we were bad one year, we're just gonna throw him out.
That doesn't look good on anybody.
It just really doesn't. I mean, to build something great, it doesn't take. It's not instant gratification type thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way you build continuity in a locker room. If somebody's not performing well and it's been consistent, that's another thing. Then we were bad one year when we were supposed to be bad.
Yeah, no, it looks really bad when you trade up 10 spots to draft a kid. And then a year after surrounding him with no talent, you trade him for another kid that you still surround with no talent. That looks terrible.
Yeah.
Speaking of horribly run organizations, what in God's name is Dave Gettleman doing? So I read this other report. Then I read a mock draft. I thought they were both crazy, so I read another mock draft. All of them said the same thing. After the Giants traded Odell Beckham Jr.,
mm-hmm.
they decided they were going to draft defense with their number 1 pick. So everything I've seen, the 2 most prominent names I've seen them take are Devin White and Montez Sweat. I think both of them are very, very good players. Out of doubt. Montez Sweat and Devin White might be the 2 most athletic players in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way you can leave the number 6 pick if Dwayne Haskins is there and not take him. Eli is terrible. Eli's not good at football anymore.
I mean, at this point, he's just a placeholder. But
here's the problem. Your best player is a running back. Running backs don't have this long shelf life anymore. You have a young team. Evan Ingram's in his 3rd season. Saquon Barkley's in his 2nd season. You have a lot of really, really young players. You have some young offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you running it back with a 39-year-old quarterback that can't throw anymore? Get a young quarterback, let him develop with that O-line, with Sterling Shepard, with Saquon Barkley. Go get Dwayne Haskins. He's going to be the best quarterback available on the board. Because what I read was that at 17, they'll probably take Daniel Jones. They're going to take Daniel Jones because he was coached by David Cutcliffe, who coached both of the Manning brothers. They're saying Daniel Jones is this guy, whatever, he's pro-ready, he's this, he's that, he's smart, he's big, he's strong. He has the 5th best arm in this draft, according to experts. He only completed 59% of his passes at Duke. If he's that good, why does he have the same completion percentage as Josh Allen, who everyone said, great arm, can't throw?
Man, I don't... See, my thing on that is, if an organization decides that, okay, Dwayne Haskins is going to be available, but we think this guy has an equal or higher, ceiling than him.
But he doesn't.
I mean, we won't know that until they play in the league, but...
Dwayne Haskins is better at football than Daniel Jones. He's better at everything. He's more accurate. He has a stronger arm. And even if you want to go with, big traditional pocket passer, Dwayne Haskins is bigger.
So, I mean, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see that until they both get in the league and they perform. But if they do get in the league and Dwayne Haskins isn't that good, you're going to look like an idiot. But, I mean...
He's better than Daniel Jones.
Personally, I think they should take Dwayne Haskins at 6. Personally, I think they should trade up and take Kyler.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Because he can just run a zone read every play and nobody can touch him.
Yeah, I think they should take Kyler, and then that way that'll make me a Giants fan because that would be awesome. But I mean, if they think Daniel Jones is gonna be good in the league, then there's no reason to take Dwayne Haskins because Daniel Jones is probably still gonna be there at 17. Mm-hmm. So there's no point in even going like, okay, if we don't want to take Haskins here, we think he'll be better. If that's their assessment, then
here's why it's a problem to take Daniel Jones at 17. Because if he's still there at 17, that means Cincinnati passed on him at 11.
Mm-hmm.
It means Miami passed on him. It means Jacksonville passed on him,
mm-hmm.
which I know they just signed Nick Foles, but they still need a guy for the future. It means Cincinnati at 11 passed on him. It means Miami at 13 passed on him. And it means Washington at 15 passed on him. That's 4 teams that need a quarterback. And if it means Denver passed on him at 10 too. If all 5 of those teams pass on him and he's the quote-unquote best quarterback available, that means he's not good.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
If all of these teams are passing on him...
What about the teams that passed on Pat? Were they stupid?
Yes. Of course they were.
I mean, it's like, I don't know, man. It's just really... The draft, it's really, really hard. Experts always make these assessments of these players,
mm-hmm.
and then it turns out that the assessment there's no way to tell. There's absolutely no way to tell. If all the teams pass on, it's just like all the teams that passed on, Pat, stupid. If all these teams pass on Daniel Jones and he's cold, they'll be stupid. There's just no way to tell.
But here's the thing that I've come to realize about scouting and the draft and all this other kind of stuff. Teams need to rely on just watching a dude play. Because last year, they talked about Baker Mayfield and how it was bad to take him number 1. Guess what? If you just watched Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma, you knew the kid could play. If you watched Josh Rosen, you knew he could play. If you watched Lamar Jackson, you knew he could play. You knew there was things they had to work on. They're kids, but obviously they all need work. But you knew they could play. If you watched Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in college, you knew they could play.
I don't know.
I watched Daniel Jones. He's not good.
But what about Colt Brennan? We knew he could play. He set records at Hawaii.
And he was never given a chance in the NFL.
Oh, he was given a chance. He just didn't
catch it. By the Redskins, who have the worst front office in the history of ever.
I don't know, man. You can watch people play and they can be so cold in college and then it just doesn't translate. There's plenty of examples of that. So it's all up to chance, really.
So the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap this up, the Raiders have 3 number 1 picks. They got 3 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
They got the number 4 pick, the number 24 pick, and the number 27 pick. They got a lot of holes. That is not a very good team. Problem is, they got a coach who might be the cockiest person in the NFL.
And
they have a GM.
Baby.
Exactly. And they have a GM who's worked on TV with John Gruden for a decade, being a draft expert.
That's why
we will find out if he's going to be a draft expert or not. If Mike Mayock goofs this up, like, John Gruden gave you 3 first-round picks. You spent the last 20 years working for NFL Network being a draft expert. You get to do this in real life now. Well, you better not mess this up.
He's going to take DK Metcalf with that 4th pick.
You know what? That wouldn't surprise me because that's like the most Raiders pick of all time. Yeah. That's exactly what the Raiders would do.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because you know what would happen? They would have Quentin Nelson and Josh Allen on the board, and they'd be like, we only had 13 sacks last year. Why do we need a pass rusher? Let's go get another receiver Derek Carr can't throw to, because that makes freaking sense. Let's pass on the most productive pass rusher in the SEC and the best defensive line prospect that Alabama's had in 5 years. Let's pass on those guys who will actually give us production that we need to go get a receiver that Derek Carr can't throw to. Well, that's a brilliant idea.
You better watch him out for Derek Carr challenge you to a fight like he did Stephen A.
You know where to find me, Derek. If you're watching this show, that means we're doing something right. So, I'm cool with it. So, look, this draft is going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of intrigue at the top, and I'm very curious because there's a lot of teams that are picking very, very high that are not run very well. And so I'm really curious to see what some of these GMs do that don't usually do smart things. I'm really curious to see what Washington does. They're picking at 15, meaning the top 3 quarterbacks aren't going to be there. I'm curious to see if they trade up. I'm curious to see if they maybe make a trade for Josh Rosen. There's a lot of moving pieces that can go on here. What is Cincinnati going to do? Are they just going to decide, all right, we got rid of Marvin Lewis. Let's go ahead and just do none of the things we've been doing for the last 16 years. Mm-hmm. Let's go get our fans back. Let's go trade up and get Dwayne Haskins. Mm-hmm. Or, what are they going to do with Andy Dalton? Mm-hmm. If Andy Dalton becomes available, I wouldn't be surprised if the Redskins traded for him because they're stupid. But I think this draft is going to be really, really interesting. I don't think there's any of these foregone conclusions like we've had the last couple of years.
Yeah, the storylines definitely be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting if Kyler doesn't go 1.
I think if he does go 1, it'd be more interesting because it's like they haven't offloaded Josh Rosen yet. So
I think if Kyler goes 1, Josh Rosen will be gone before the top 10 is finished.
Probably, yeah.
I think if Kyler gets traded, he's gone. But they're going to get shafted on that trade. They're going to get like a 3rd-round pick for him.
Probably.
So if any of you guys are like me, you really don't watch a ton of golf unless your guy is playing. And I think for pretty much everybody, Tiger Woods has been that guy. At least people my age. We grew up watching Tiger. Tiger hasn't won anything since I was in 8th grade. He finally did it this weekend. He won the Masters. It is about damn time. Shout out LeBron James. Tiger winning golf might be the greatest sporting event I've seen in a long time. And to use a cliche that I really don't like, Tiger did it for the culture. Salute, Tiger.
I'm not going to be here.